the frostiest conditions will be. Meanwhile, for eastern England, there will be further showers coming in from the North Sea, and one or two of those will reach the Pennines, into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast at times overnight before eventually fading away. Areas of cloud as well for eastern and southern areas, so mostly frost-free towards the southeast, although a touch of ground frost or frost on your cars first thing couldn't be ruled out. The more extensive frost likely across Scotland and Northern Ireland, -1, -2 Celsius, perhaps lower in some spots, and some dense fog, especially for Northern Ireland. Now that fog will actually lift as this area of cloud to the northwest moves into Northern Ireland and Western Scotland, bringing some patchy rain for the Western Isles by the afternoon and an increased breeze. 6 to 8 Celsius typical, though, across the UK, and for much of England, Wales, southern and eastern Scotland, a bright, fine afternoon to come with sunny spells. And actually under clear skies across England and Wales overnight into the start of the weekend. Well, it's going to be another frosty one with some dense fog patches forming in the south. Meanwhile, the area of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland pushes into northern England by the start of the weekend, but it really diminishes into light and patchy outbreaks of rain, with this cloud tending to keep things frost-free first thing this weekend, but also fairly grey across this central swathe of the UK. So for northern England, parts of Wales, the Midlands, generally cloudy skies. Not much rain associated with that cloud, though, by that stage. It looks largely dry across the UK, and the best of any brighter weather will be in the south and the far north.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, let it be known, if it wasn't already painfully clear, the brainwashed left are not on the side of women. In fact, the likes of Labour MP Paulette Hamilton seem more concerned with the rights of a trans rapist, thankfully now yanked from a women's prison in Scotland after justified outrage, than the safety of her own sex.
We have to treat him fairly. Transitioning to a woman, we have to respect the fact that he is transitioning to a woman.
Do we? In my latest digest, I'll ask, has Starmer's party now lost all credibility on the gender issue? And after this shocking case forced Nicola Sturgeon to perform a screeching U-turn, is her controversial woke bill unravelling? I'll get the thoughts of my superstar panel too. Joining me tonight, Dominique Samuels, Sean Bailey and Amy Nicol. as shocking new details emerge of how a killer asylum seeker fooled officials into thinking he was a schoolboy before striking again. Is Britain's asylum system broken? Former Tory Minister Anne Widdecombe weighs in on that harrowing case at 9:50. As Andrew Bridgen threatens to sue Matt Hancock and the COVID booster programme winds down for all but the most vulnerable, why are victims of the vax still being ignored, even as debate over the jabs starts to become legitimised? At 10:20, I'm going to exclusively reveal damning stats showing the scale of injustice related to the government's vaccine damage payment scheme. Then I'll be joined by two brave campaigners, vaccine damage widow Charlotte Wright and victim Claire Hobbs. With the Princess of Wales advocating the building of better relationships, should there be an effort to heal the rift between Harry, Meghan, William and Kate before May's coronation? My royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier are going to explore at 9:35. Plus, weird little Sussex mouthpiece Omid Scobie has descended to new depths, suggesting the late Queen herself was a racist by dropping her infamous response to Harry and Meghan into this vile rant.
And you try and minimise it or skirt the topic, or recollections may vary it, that is racism.
I'm going to have a blistering verdict on this deranged anti-royal hate campaign in the media buzz after 10. Plus, should the government raise the retirement age to 68 to help pay for our ageing population? Mature opinion on the way from Stanley Johnson, Edwina Curry and Kim Woodburn. I'll get your verdict too, all at 9:20. Plus, as a promising young British athlete described as sports Greta Thunberg refuses to fly overseas due to climate concerns, is eco-extremism stomping out the dreams of our children? That's a fascinating debate coming up in the next hour. We'll have tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the press, plus a new Greatest Britain Union Jackass too. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. It has been a shameful day for scheming Sturgeon. My special digest on that coming up. But first, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story on GB News tonight. The former Chancellor, Nadeem Zahawi, has given HMRC approval to release files relating to his tax affairs to the independent investigator. It follows Chief Executive Jim Harrer telling MPs there are no penalties for innocent errors after being questioned by the Public Accounts Committee. The Tory party chairman Zahawi is facing calls to resign after it emerged he had paid a penalty to HMRC whilst he was Chancellor. The Prime Minister has said no issues were raised to him about Zahawi when he was appointed to his cabinet.
Because Nadeem Zahawi himself put a statement into the public domain and there was other reporting, there are questions to answer, and that's why I asked the independent advisor to conduct an investigation to fully establish the facts and provide advice to me about Nadeem Zahawi's compliance with the ministerial code.
Well, in international news tonight, at least 11 people have died in Russian missile strikes in Ukraine, a day after the US and Germany pledged to supply the country with tanks and infantry fighting vehicles. More than 10 people have been wounded in the attacks, which covered 11 regions, including the capital, Kyiv. Germany's defence minister says he expects the first Leopard 2 tanks to arrive in Ukraine by the end of March, as will the UK's Challenger 2 tanks. Russia has responded, with the Kremlin saying the deliveries of military hardware amounted to direct involvement in the conflict by the West. As you've been hearing, Scotland's First Minister has confirmed a transgender person convicted of rape will not be sent to an all-female prison. Earlier this week, Isla Bryson, formerly named as Adam Graham, was found guilty of raping 2 women before choosing to change his gender to female. At First Minister's questions, Nicola Sturgeon addressed the row on whether Bryson should be held at a females-only Corton Vale prison. She also confirmed a risk assessment has been carried out by the Scottish Prison Service. Now, Andrew Bridgen has threatened to sue the former Health Secretary for defamation following an online post he retweeted about the COVID jab. Early this month, the North West Leicestershire MP was stripped of the Tory whip after retweeting a post by a consultant cardiologist which said the number of people suffering with heart problems after having the COVID vaccine was the biggest crime against humanity since the Holocaust. Matt Hancock accused Mr Bridgen of anti-Semitic, anti-vax and anti-scientific conspiracy theories in the House of Commons, which Mr Bridgen has taken great exception to. Now, the King has been given a warm welcome during his first visit to the new Africa Centre in South London. His Majesty spoke to staff and visitors and heard how the centre provides a home away from home for Africans living in the UK. The new building is a 60s former office block that's been transformed into a community hub for African culture, art and heritage. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. Back now to Dan Wootton tonight.
Extraordinary developments today in the case of the Scottish trans sham rapist that has shocked the United Kingdom and shamed scheming Nicola Sturgeon. In a humiliating U-turn that actually amounts to a concession that the SNP's gender extremist dream is collapsing, Scotland's First Minister had to admit that Adam Graham, who is now known in the Scottish courts as Isla Bryson, should not be in an all-female prison after being convicted of 2 rapes in 2016 and 2019. You'll remember from our coverage the past 2 nights that Graham, who physically remains a man, only began to transition after his rape charge. And his estranged wife, Shauna Graham, told the Mail Online in an extraordinary interview that it was all a ploy by this monster to get himself a much easier sentence. She told the website his gender transition is a sham for attention and an easier life in prison. When I saw the photos of him dressed as a woman with a blonde wig and pink lycra leggings, I fell out of bed laughing. I can see why he doesn't want to be in prison with loads of big scary men, but sending him to a women's prison is outrageous. Will one of the vulnerable women inmates be the next victim to be attacked by him? He won't stop. It's in his nature. So, after spending the past few months insisting that Scotland's sick gender recognition reform bill could not be used by male predators to threaten the safety of biological girls and women, Sturgeon now admits rapists should not be housed at the all-female Cornton Vale jail in Stirling.
I would say is this individual case, it's not about whether they are trans or not. In this individual case, this is a person who's been convicted of rape. So this individual is a rapist and a sex offender, and that is what is important.
Remember, this is the same Sturgeon who refused to vote for an amendment that would have prevented accused rapists or child sex abusers from transitioning using self-identification until after their trial. Scottish Tory leader Douglas Ross called out her madness.
Have warned for months that violent criminals, just like the sex offender, the absolute beast we are discussing today, would try to exploit loopholes in the law and attack and traumatise women. Rapists are currently exploiting the current laws. We shouldn't make it any easier for them to attack women. Now, Nicola Sturgeon has seemed to reject that the fact that he's currently there isn't a risk to women. I can't agree with that. So can I ask the First Minister, will she go to Cornton Vale? Will she personally explain to the women there who are sharing their prison with a double rapist why on earth her government is allowing them to be in a cell next door?
This problem is stark and real. To prove the point, 58.9% of the trans women prison population in England and Wales are sex offenders, compared to just 3.3% of women prisoners. But now Britain has woken up to the danger of these extreme policies, which have thrust trans people into the midst of a culture war they never asked to be a part of, by the way. And I think that's the danger of a Labour SNP coalition from hell. Watch the Labour MP, Paulette Hamilton, today, insisting that this monster double rapist Graham deserves, wait for it, respect to transition.
We have to treat him fairly. Transitioning to a woman, we have to respect the fact that he is transitioning to a woman. We need just to be fair. And he has a fair hearing. Saying all of that, transitioning, he will get the support he needs to ensure that he transitions safely.
What about the safety of the female prisoners and prison guards that this bloke would be putting at risk? But it's hardly a surprise that that's her position, given the inability of Slippery Starmer and Robotic Reeves to back women in this increasingly toxic intra-party civil war.
A woman can have a penis.
Look, I'm not... I don't think we can conduct this debate with... You know,
sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No. It's just no. I just, for the vast majority of women, this is all about biology, and of course they don't have a penis. We all know that. So for the vast majority of women, biology is what matters, and it's very clear they don't have a penis.
Is it transphobic? Look, I don't even know how to start answering these questions. I think that people should be able to identify with the gender that they feel comfortable with.
Respectfully, Shadow Chancellor, that wasn't my question. My question is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. If somebody identifies as a woman and a man, or a man, they should be able to do so, whatever their body parts are.
What a mess. So, Labour and the SNP are now playing woke games with the safety and protection of Britain's women. It's dangerous and it's morally wrong. To respond now, my superstar panel, political commentator Dominique Samuels, former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. Dominique Samuels, today Nicola Sturgeon's dream of introducing gender extremism to Scotland died, in my opinion.
And it's a shame that it actually had to happen this way for the problems to be actually exposed, but it has. The reality is, when you have these lax gender laws and when you allow people to exploit the system, funnily enough, that's actually what happens. People do end up exploiting the system, and we see dangerous predators like this be allowed near women and in women's spaces. And those that support Nicola Sturgeon's bill will say, oh, well, this, you know, the Gender Recognition Act had no impact on this. But at the end of the day, there were specific concerns that Nicola Sturgeon could have addressed in tandem with the bill. For example, making it so that, like in this country, if you don't have a gender recognition certificate, there's no way that you should be considered for a female prison.
So in England,
period.
I think that's really important to clarify. In England, this man would not have been sent to a women's prison.
Yeah.
And actually, what the gender recognition certificate does is make it even easier for this to happen time and again.
And that is the point. It further legitimises these people.
This will be happening all the time.
And this is all without a diagnosis.
Amy Nicol, do you now accept that you got this disastrously wrong? And are you going to withdraw and apologise to the women of Britain for supporting this gender recognition bill?
No, Dan, because...
You still support it?
No politician would support this individual you're talking about going to a women's prison.
Well, no, they did.
No,
they did. The SNP did yesterday.
This is a failure.
Nicola Sturgeon, you turned today. The SNP were literally supporting it up until yesterday. Sturgeon saw the coverage and she U-turned. I know, I just have to correct you because that's a fact.
This is
the
very
SNP were supporting this up
very
until
clearly
today.
a failure of the prison service. In the case of transgender prisoners...
It's not a failure of the SNP.
Can I finish one point, particularly on this? If you've said I should make a public apology, just let me clarify my points.
And I'll wait for the apology.
Right. So this is a failure of the prison service. This person didn't have a gender recognition certificate, which is what you continually think will give people access to women's spaces. 90% of trans women are in male prisons at the moment.
And
transgender prisoners are taken on a case-by-case basis. This person was not correctly risk assessed. This is one mistake. The mistakes also work the other way round. So if you take the case of Vicky Thompson, she was a transgender woman caught for shoplifting in 2015. She was sent to a men's prison. She committed suicide in that men's prison after being continually raped by her fellow inmates. She should not have been in a male prison. Likewise, Isla, this individual we're talking today, should not have been in a women's prison.
Why are you calling
These
him
are
Isla?
mistakes.
Why are you
These
calling,
are mistakes.
Why are you calling him Isla?
Because whatever,
Why are you calling him
because
Isla?
whatever I call her, him, whatever gender they might identify
Have
with.
you read the interview from his wife, who says this is a complete sham?
It might be. It probably is. But that's not really for me to judge. I don't know the individual. What I do know about the individual is that they shouldn't have gone to women's prison. But that is nothing to do with these gender laws, and that's really important that you differentiate the two.
No, but it is connected to gender recognition reform bill, and Sean, I'll tell you why and give you a chance to respond.
That's not the
but
only
there was an
suicide.
opportunity for the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon to make a very small concession when this bill was passed. And there was an amendment that was put forward, and it was actually equal votes. It was 61 votes each. So Sturgeon's vote passed it. And what it would have done is it would have said, if you are facing trial as a man, as either a child abuser or a rapist, you cannot self-identify as a female until after the conclusion of the trial. Because what women in Scotland are now facing, what the victims of rape in Scotland are now facing, is having to give evidence with the accuser in court and refer to the accuser by their female name and using their female pronouns. And Sturgeon refused to vote that amendment through. So this is going to happen more and more under Sturgeon's scheme.
The bottom line is this. Labour and the SNP have absolutely no credibility on this. The Labour leader couldn't identify if a woman has a penis or not. No credibility. Nicola Sturgeon, in a rush to be hip and PC, made a massive mistake. Because what would happen with the gender recognition bill is it makes things like this much more likely to happen, because if you are legally a woman in Scotland, how's the Scottish justice system...
Amy, hold on.
If you are... Hold on, Amy, hold on. Let me make my point. If you are legally a woman, right, then of course the system will respond to you. And look, we're talking about prison, but what would you do about school? If you have a gender recognition certificate as a girl and you want to go to all-girls school, the school couldn't stop you in Scotland, and all those kind of things. So actually, what it does, it robs women of men's free spaces.
Could you say your point and then I'll just answer? But what I'm going to say is that whilst you're correct that before getting a gender recognition certificate, you can go to a women's prison if you declare yourself a woman, which I think is wrong, OK? Even before that, I think it's wrong. What our jurisdiction has actually done, what our government has announced, is that if you have male genitalia or if you transition after you were convicted of these crimes as a male, then that is just straight up not allowed in a women's prison unless serious circumstances, and then they have to be looked over by a minister. But those sorts of safeguards are important, because if you're going to start saying that basically anyone can get a legally binding document that says they are the sex that they are, at least include
this is precisely why it currently is in the prison system that transgender prisoners are looked at case by case. There was a mistake made here, undoubtedly. We can all agree with that.
But these are new guidance that our government has actually developed in response
this would
to
not
this issue.
happen in England. And the thing that you have to realise, Amy, that this woke orthodoxy, which is sweeping Scotland under the SNP, is going to make this happen much, much more, because any male rapist... And by the way, to be a rapist, you have to be a man. That is the legal definition. No doubt that will be changed soon by some woke dictionary owners. But you have to be a man to be a rapist.
Can I point out
but
one
not
thing?
in Scotland.
That actually...
In Scotland, you can be a female rapist according to the court, and your victim has to refer... It's
this
madness.
has nothing to do with self-ID. This has been rolled out in 30 different countries which are without prison rape sprees.
To me, it has everything to do with self-ID, because in future, people like this monstrous cretin, Graham, will no longer even have to undergo any medical examination
You're
or any
talking about a
treatment.
rapist. A rapist is inherently a danger to women, so will be kept away from women.
Yeah, but
even if it was the case that this person had gone to a women's prison, they would have been in segregation.
Because of the popularisation of this gender ideology, we are seeing frequently now, a lot of the time, people slipping through the cracks.
And there are also...
And impregnating the prisoners.
And on the other side...
The statistics actually show it. You know, you are 5 times more likely to perform sex attacks on other inmates if you are a transgender person.
I'm just going to repeat. Amy, hold on. I'm just going to repeat. It's a very important point to make that, of course, it's very important
that trans people who want to go through the surgery, who want to make this big change, are able to do so, but given how seismic that change is, psychologically and physically, the idea that you should be able to do it without a diagnosis of gender dysphoria and without living in your gender for a long time, personally, I think is deeply irresponsible. So there are so many factors here.
But the British Psychological
Final word.
Association would not agree with you. Medicalising this is not the way forward, as proven by every medical and psychological board there is. And when you talk about the risk to inmates in prison,
But human rights groups and women's groups have said that this is a problem.
in the
UN
incorrect prison
Special
is
Envoy
16 times more likely to suffer abuse within prison.
All right,
It's
thank you
important
so
that they
much.
go...
Amy
but they
Nicole,
also have identical
Dominique
offending
Samuels,
patterns to
Sean
men,
Bailey,
though.
thank
That's
you
a
so
fact.
much. And my
They do.
superstar panel are here with me all night. But our royal masterminds are still to come, and with the Princess of Wales dropping hints about building better relationships and reports that Prince Andrew is confident he will be cleared by a mystery revelation, the guest list for this summer's coronation is still very much up in the air. Lady Colin Campbell and respected biographer Phil Dampier tackle all of this at 9:35. But up next in The Clash, with ministers warned they are playing with fire, does the government have no choice but to raise the retirement age to 68? TV firebrand Kim Woodburn goes up against Boris Johnson's dad Stanley Johnson and Tory grandee Edwina Currie in just a couple of minutes' time. What do you think? Dan at gbnews.uk. Tweet me using the handle @GBNews. You can vote in our poll too. The Clash, straight after the break.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh yes, already to bless.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panelists.
Time now for The Clash. Millions of Brits could be forced to work for longer under new secret government plans to raise the retirement age to 68 by 2035, it has been revealed. The proposal could be announced as early as the March budget and would affect those born in the 1970s and later. The current retirement age of 66 will increase to 67 in 2028, and the next scheduled rise to 68 is due in 2046. However, ministers reportedly want to bring forward the change to 2035, affecting those who are 54 and under today. However, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Chancellor Jeremy Hunt have both been warned by Tory backbenchers that they are playing with fire with the policy likely to alienate voters at the next general election. So what do you think? Should the government increase the retirement age to 68 to help pay for our ageing population? Dan at gbnews.uk if you want to weigh in. You can vote in our poll at GBNews on Twitter too. But to help you make up your mind, joining me, the TV firebrand and queen of clean, Kim Woodburn, former MEP and environmental activist Stanley Johnson, and the former Conservative Minister Edwina Currie. So, Stanley, you're very clear on this. You say absolutely Brits are just going to have to get used to working much longer.
Well, I think that's right. I think that's going to be inevitable. We have an aging population. We are, I think, 18.5% of our current population is over 65, and that's going to increase by several million by the year 2040. So I think it is inevitable the government is going to do what it is suggesting. It can't afford not to do it. Yes, we pay as we go with our contributions, but that's not covering the increasing eligible population. And as we're bringing forward this age where we can qualify, I think that has to be the way.
But Edwina, is that fair on people who have worked their life expecting to be able to retire?
Well, we've been through this row before, this argument before, because we pushed up the retirement age. But by retirement age, let's be clear, we're talking about the age at which you can claim your state pension. We pushed it up for women in really quite a fast rate, from 60 to 65 to get it equal to men, and then up again to 66. So, women have had already quite a hard time. I think what's happening, Dan, is the government's trying to solve two problems. One is we're actually short of working people, and the other is trying to repair the public finances. And I can think of two other age groups who ought to do their contribution before you start turning to the older people in society. First of all, people in their 50s who haven't gone back to work after COVID. There must be ways of nudging them to get back into jobs. And secondly, students. We have an enormous number of students in this country. When I first started work, and Stanley will remember this time, only 1 in 10 of over 18s went on to full-time education at university or college. Now it is 1 in 2. We've gone from 10% to 50%.
Yeah, well, I blame Tony Blair for that.
Totally useless degrees. We don't need more people being media graduates. We need more plumbers. I've had to wait 2 months for a plumber to come to my house. The more people we can get into work at 18, the better, I think, and that would help solve an awful lot of problems.
Yeah, I do agree with that, actually. But Kim Woodburn, Stanley Johnson says, look, Brits should have to work until they drop. You disagree?
I totally disagree. I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Johnson. 1.3 billion of our taxes go to illegal immigrants a year. And if the government would get their fingers out and do the correct job, there's enough money coming in. They don't need any more money for pensions up to 68. They're squandering money like mad. Your recent MP, who should be fired, 4.8 million, he's fiddled. Oh, you're a wonderful, wonderful example, aren't you? If we can afford to spend 1.3 billion a year on illegal immigrants, when most of them should be sent back, the need for one's keep, 50% are bums.
OK, let Stanley respond, Kim.
Yeah, Kim, I don't think you're focusing on the reality. The reality is that we, the older generation, have gained about 8 years, 9 years in life expectancy. Now, in the good old days, when people like Heathcote Amory was Chancellor of the Exchequer in the end of the 40s, it was brilliant. People smoked, they died at 60. He got money from the tax on cigarettes, and he didn't have to pay for old age care and the pension for a long time. That situation has changed. We eight years. We were going to have eight more years. It is absolutely reasonable.
But what about, but Stanley, what about folk like Kim? Kim obviously has developed a big celebrity career now, but for years and years and years, she was a cleaner. I mean, that is tough work, isn't it, Kim?
That's a very good point.
To do manual labour.
15 years of age.
No, you've got a good point.
15.
You've got a good point. There are some. I think you're right. I grew up on a farm, and I can tell you, the sheer physical labour involved, if you leave school at 13, 14, 15, whatever it was, and then you're doing docking and shearing and dipping and heaven knows what.
Yeah, but you're saying those people
You're right.
have to
Those
work,
are important
till
issues.
about 70.
Those are important issues, and I couldn't agree with you more. Maybe there's some work at the margin here, that there are certain careers which are so bodily exhausting that maybe you don't ask them to wait those extra years.
So, Kim, maybe there could be exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just tossing that out.
You can't expect a person in much older years to do farming work. The physical strain, well, you couldn't do it at 68. We change, you know. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. But Stanley, there's enough money in this country if we would do a proper job as MPs. Claw back all these people that aren't paying their taxes. Billions and billions and billions aren't paying their taxes. Look at showbiz people who've done people out of 2 million. I can name a name, but I won't.
Well, Kim, if you really want to enlarge the discussion, then for heaven's sake,
what age are you going to retire? Are you not retired?
I am. No, I'm expecting to work for many more years. I mean, for me, it's absolutely good fun.
Yeah, it's Coach Stanley. I love that.
I mean, well, why not? Why not?
No, are you retired now?
No, of course I'm not retired.
He's here.
Why on earth would I be retired? I've written 20.
The job you do is hardly stressful, dear, is it? You walk around in a smart suit.
Can I get a word in edgeways?
Yes, Edwina, come on. Edwina, who are you siding with, Edwina? Who are you feeling? Are you with Kim or are you with Stanley? You can be the deciding vote.
I love the idea of Kim actually standing for Parliament and being a better member of Parliament than the people she's criticising.
I think she'd be great.
A job. Nor will the money that is being spent currently on illegal immigrants be anything like enough to sustain millions and millions of older people. Stanley has got a point. We have many more millions of older people. But I would say that to some extent we've already dealt with that. If you look at the row that's going on in France at the moment, the retirement age there for the state pension is 60. And they're having no end of a job trying to raise it to something closer to us. So we've kind of gone further along that path. As for somebody who is in a tough job and perhaps can't work any longer, you know, we do have benefits of a different kind that are available at any age where people cannot work. And those are really quite expensive and we should keep them. But I make my point again, there are other groups in society who ought to be pulling their weight much more.
Kim?
It is much easier to get a job at 20 than it is at 66. And I think we ought to be looking to them to do their bit far more than they're doing at the moment.
Earlier about the students. Why do they all have to go to university? 1 in 10 went when I was a kid, now many more. Why? They laze around, they muck about, they're on drugs and God knows what, and the government's keeping them in grants. We have enough money in this country if the government spent it wisely and stop all this nonsense of giving these kids snuff. It makes me sick. And another thing, there's many people, young people, are too bloody bone idle to work. And the government should stop giving them and their parents lots of money. And the parents sitting there, I'm poor. She's at the hairdresser's once a week, mummy with a fag in her gob. Her husband's at the pub 3 nights a week on the way home from work. That is not a poor family, not the poor I knew.
Let me toss in another point here, if I may. I really have great sympathy with the Chancellor of the Exchequer here. It's an impossible task he is faced with. And don't forget, at the same time, you and many like you are pushing for the triple lock. The triple lock, that is going to put another 10% on the value of a state pension. He has to do something. And what he's doing now seems to be reasonable and acceptable.
Okay.
Not when young people are sitting at home under 25, not working.
Yeah.
And claiming.
Well, I have to say, I think Kim has made some great points.
Do something.
There's a lot of government waste.
You can't penalise old people because youngsters are bone flaming idle. What's the matter with you?
No, there's a lot of government waste. And I have to say, Edwina, I love your idea. Imagine that. Kim Woodburn, MP. You wouldn't want to mess with her and you wouldn't miss her questions during PM
Well,
News.
cocktails at dawn, dear. MPs don't work anyway.
Let's hope she writes. Let's hope she writes as good novels as Edwina does when she's an MP.
No, I'll tell you something. Edwina is a lovely woman. I met her a couple of times. She's a sweet, sweet woman. I don't agree with many things she said today, but that's her opinion. No, she's a lovely and did work. Many of them quaff, lazy arseholes.
On that note,
down to a failing convulsion.
On that note, Kim Woodburn, TV legend, former MEP Stanley Johnson at the Tory Grand
If you don't like it, sue me. I don't care.
Then that's why we love you. Thank you, Kim, and Edwina Curry too. Who do you agree with? Should the government increase the retirement age to 68? From Graham. For most people, accumulating even a modest pension pot takes a long time. Too many in government have absolutely no idea. Nelia says, most people I know who could have retired at 60 but wish to carry on made it to 62. The head says yes, the body says no. You can think you can carry on as if you were 25. I wish. And from Andrew on Twitter, no one in their 30s or 40s now is realistically expecting to retire before 68, 69 anyway. And I'd agree with that. I think it's inevitable that it will end up being at least 70. Your verdict is now in there. It's overwhelming. Just 22% of you agree with Stanley that the retirement age should be increased. 78% of you with Kim Woodburn and saying it most definitely shouldn't. But coming up with chilling new details emerging about how a triple murdering asylum seeker duped authorities by posing as a British schoolboy. Is our asylum system irreparably broken? Former Tory Minister Anne Widdecombe here at 9:50. But first, with Kate dropping hints at reconciliation and Prince Andrew confident his name will be cleared ahead of the coronation, there's plenty for our royal masterminds to get their teeth into. Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier are up straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
She's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for our royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier. And despite suffering a relentless storm of personal attacks at the hands of the Sussexes, Wills and Kate have kept a typically dignified silence while recommencing public appearances in recent weeks. Indeed, the unflappable Princess of Wales has been speaking to academics in Windsor and made a comment that could be interpreted as relevant. Speaking on the importance of childhood relationships, mentioning no names, the princess said, "How do we better manage and regulate our emotions? How do we build better relationships?" Now, Kate's comments do raise an interesting question. Lady C, should a concerted effort be made to heal the rift between the warring royals in time for May's coronation? Is that what Kate was referring to?
I would have to say, irrespective of what she might have been referring to, and I speak from some experience on the subject, having written a book on narcissism called Daughter of Narcissus, it is very dangerous to expect somebody with a personality disorder to ever improve. If they improve, it's a temporary thing and they always come back to bite you. I think it would be a grave mistake for the family to expect or hope that any improvement in reality could be made. And I would like to see the king use the fact that Harry has endangered himself and everybody else around him as the reason for keeping him at bay at the coronation. I think it's a perfectly valid reason to say Harry has exposed himself to danger, he's exposing everybody else to danger, and therefore it is not safe for him to attend. And then down the line they can make all the errors they want to do.
I think that's a good idea, Phil. I think that's a really good idea. Make it a safety issue, because Harry has now made himself the #1 terror threat.
Yeah, he has done, and obviously it would be better for all concerned if they just voluntarily didn't turn up, Dan. But the trouble is that he's already making threats, isn't he? A second book, a paperback edition. We got Meghan's book. You know, what are they going to say? It's almost like they're blackmailing the royals, isn't it? And that is the problem. Even if they do turn up, they won't trust them. It could be more material for another book. So it's very, very difficult. It's already well for Kate to make all the right noises and talk about better relationships, but it's going to be very, very difficult. It's very raw at the moment, as Lady C says, and I can't see any rift being healed soon. I mean, I think William in particular is deeply hurt by all this, and he's not going to really want to see his brother in the near future.
Lady C, I did want to ask you about this fascinating briefing from Meghan's people to the Daily Telegraph this week, where for the first time she was prepared to publicly distance herself from her husband. She said she wouldn't have dealt with Spare in the same way that he did. Did you find that significant at all? It's odd, isn't it? It's odd.
No, I don't know why you'd say it's odd that a barracuda shows its teeth and takes a bite out of someone's leg. I mean, that's what barracudas do. You know.
But it's her own husband, Lady C. It's her own husband, and it looks like her people are starting to brief against him.
Well, remember what she did to the previous husband.
True.
And remember what she's done to her father and her siblings.
Very true.
So I think, you know, we need to understand Meghan has very sharp teeth and that she will use them as and when she thinks it's so.
Oh no, we've lost Lady C, but look, I'm going to move on because The Sun is reporting that Prince Andrew has been permanently booted out of Buckingham Palace in the latest embarrassing development for the disgraced Duke. However, it was revealed yesterday that Andrew believes his reputation will be restored within the next month by a, quote, mystery development, with suggestions he will also launch a legal bid to overturn the financial settlement he struck with Virginia Giuffre. So, Phil Dampier, you are the journalist who has covered Andrew for years and years and years. You have broken massive developments on the Duke. It felt, Phil, like just a few months ago, he was done. He was finished. There was no chance of a comeback. This week, Phil, you've got Charles Moore on the front page of the Daily Telegraph saying, hang on a moment, I think Andrew is innocent.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a sort of campaign, doesn't there, for Andrew to be rehabilitated, and Charles Moore's one of his cheerleaders. I'm not sure, Dan. I don't think there's a silver bullet that's going to get him off this. I mean, even if he discredits Virginia Giuffre and her story, it still can't be denied that he continued visiting Jeffrey Epstein at his flat after he'd been at his house in New York after he'd been convicted. And I think the fact that he's been booted out of his apartment, according to The Sun, by King Charles at Buckingham Palace, indicates that he's not going to get back as a working royal. He might want to, and Charles is willing to see him as a family member, as he did at Christmas at Sandringham. But I just don't see it. And I'd be fascinated to know what this so-called sort of silver bullet is that's going to get him off the hook. He did pay that money.
Lady C, do you know what the silver bullet is? Because great to have you back, by the way, but you have always been abundantly clear, and actually from one of my very first shows here on GB News, you have always been fighting the fight for Prince Andrew, and you are convinced that he is innocent. What's this silver bullet that he's talking about?
He's absolutely innocent. I'm not sure that I know what the silver bullet is. I've been told two possibilities. And I don't think it would be judicious to impart what either of those could be. And it could be optimism on his part as well. But he is absolutely innocent. And, you know, I don't particularly like Prince Andrew. So if he were guilty, I'd be the first one to throw him to the wolves. But an innocent man should not be pilloried for something he didn't do.
OK, great stuff. Our royal masterminds, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier, we're going to keep on both of these stories, of course, and we will speak to you next week. But coming up, as BBC staff take personal issue with the controversy surrounding Chairman Richard Sharp and Boris Johnson, are the Beeb's woke workers incapable of impartiality? My superstar panel tackle this and the first of tomorrow's newspapers at 10 p.m. But first, as images emerge of a triple-killing asylum seeker posing as a schoolboy to helpful authorities, is Britain's asylum system just completely broken? Tori Grandy and Widdicombe is live with me straight after the break.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Anne Widdecombe is tonight's outsider. Now, shocking new details have emerged about how a triple murdering asylum seeker managed to evade authorities while posing as a 14-year-old British schoolboy. Afghan monster Loranging Abrul Rahimzai, who was jailed yesterday for life for the barbaric killing of Thomas Roberts, was actually a 19-year-old man when he was allowed to attend Wootton Academy in Bournemouth. Now, angry parents have quite rightly expressed their horror that a cold-blooded killer seen grinning with his unwitting classmates in this photo was allowed to mix freely with their children. One described him as a school bully who got into fights all the time and brazenly chatted up 14-year-old girls in a creepy fashion. An anonymous girl who lived with the convicted murderer at a children's residential facility told the Daily Mail that he would make suggestive remarks and even tried to bribe them as part of a disturbing sexual grooming routine. But numerous complaints about him fell on deaf ears, leaving him free to kill again. This deeply disturbing case where a growing man convicted of double murder and drug dealing in Serbia was allowed to dupe Home Office officials has shone a light on the grave danger posed by the ongoing migrant crisis. And Anne Widdecombe, I've been so upset about this all week. Surely this case has to be a wake-up call now. Our asylum system is broken, Anne.
Oh, it's been broken for a long time, and there is nothing new about fully grown adults coming into this country saying they're children and being admitted. And indeed, I can remember when I was an MP for a Kent constituency, the then chairman of Kent County Council saying to me, after he had been down and witnessed the work of immigration officers in Dover, actually saying to me, Anne, pensioners were saying that they were children and they were just being passed through. So I am actually not surprised by this. It's been something that's been waiting to happen for a long time because our immigration officers feel completely helpless. Now, what we needed, as I've said so many times on this programme, detention centres for all new asylum seekers so that you send them to those centres. You don't say, oh, yes, it's an unaccompanied child when they got crow's feet and goodness knows what else. You use your sense. But they don't. They live in terror of challenges in the courts.
I know, but Anne, Border Force officials now are privately briefing that they're expecting 80,000 illegals to stream in via the channel by the end of this year. So this is getting worse. It's not getting better.
No, of course it's not getting better because we don't do what we should do, which is automatically, absolutely automatically, no exceptions, detain all new asylum seekers in secure reception centres, examine their claims, test their claims, test the nationality they claim to hold. That's not difficult. Test, their age, That's not difficult.
No, and there's
Might
ways
be
to do
difficult.
that. And lots of European countries do it already.
Well, I mean, other European countries just take a much tougher approach. But I mean, I worked in the Home Office and I know very well that one of the biggest fears there is action in the courts. You know, we'll be taken to court because we've turned down a 15-year-old or something. Indeed, when you are soft like that and you take people who are claiming to be an age they're not, what do? You create an incentive to people to behave that way. And the word goes out, you know, you go to England and just say you're under 18, just say you're under 16. Yeah. That is what they do. It is a shambles. It's been a shambles for decades under governments of all colours, Labour, Conservative coalition. It is a shambles. And 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, I was calling for universal detention. And I stand by that as being, A, the means by which you send out a deterrent message. No deterrent trying to get into Britain at the moment. And B, the only way you can actually control the situation.
Indeed, absolutely. And look, when you've got a country like Norway, you know, a liberal left-wing country like Norway, saying, no, we're not going to take this murderer, yet we let him in and he kills a good 21-year-old aspiring Royal Marine. Oh, my God, it makes me rage. Anne Widdecombe, thank you so much. We'll keep on this, of course. But coming up, as Andrew Bridgen threatens to sue Matt Hancock and the COVID booster programme winds down, why are victims of the vax still being ignored even as debate over the jab starts to become legitimised? I'll be joined by two brave campaigners, vaccine-damaged widow Charlotte Wright and victim Claire Hibbs. But first in the media buzz, as woke BBC employees create a fuss over their chairman Richard Sharp's links to former PM Boris Johnson, are the broadcaster's staff just incapable of practising the impartiality they are bound by? My superstar panel have their say. We're back in just 2 minutes' time.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, the estranged wife of Scottish trans rapist Adam Graham has blown the whistle on his sinister transition ruse, slamming it as a disturbing design to keep him out of a men's prison. That chilling revelation sparked this screeching U-turn from Nicola Sturgeon.
The prison service has arrived at a decision. It's an operational matter. I think it's arrived at the right decision here. It can't be right for a rapist to be in a female prison is a statement that I agree with.
An unlikely victory for common decency then, but why is Scotland's First Minister still refusing to scrap her sick gender reform bill? Man of the People Charlie Lawson has his say on all of this madness endangering women at 10:45. As Andrew Bridgen threatens to sue Matt Hancock and the COVID booster programme is paused amid dwindling uptake, why are vaccine victims still being scandalously ignored? Two heart-wrenching victims of the jab join me live in the studio as I exclusively reveal bombshell new evidence that puts the government to shame. That important interview, it's really unmissable this, coming up at 10:20. With mutinous BBC staff personally aggrieved at the controversy surrounding Chairman Richard Sharp and Boris Johnson, are the corporation's left-wing woke warriors incapable of accepting a wealthy Tory at the helm? I'll debate that with my superstar panel next. Tonight, I'm joined by Dominic Samuels, Sean Bailey and Amy Nicol. As one of Britain's athletics' brightest stars, described as sports answers to Greta Thunberg, refuses to fly to Australia for a world title shot on environmental grounds, is it unethical to go on a long-haul flight? Or, this is what I think, are cruel parents ruining their kids' dreams by brainwashing them with climate extremism? That's going to be a very feisty big debate at 10:30. Plus, despite being branded a liar by Prince Harry, look who's back, parroting his masters with another egregious racism claim.
And you try and minimise it or skirt the topic, or recollections may vary it, that is racism.
Oh yes, he's coming for the late Queen now, so I'm going to get stuck into the Sussex's creepy little mouthpiece in the media buzz next. I'll crown final Greatest Britain Union Jackass for the week 2 at 10:50. The first front pages will arrive shortly too, right after the news at 10 with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you and good evening to you. The top story on GB News. Former Chancellor Nadeem Zahawi has given HMRC approval to release files relating to his tax affairs to the independent investigator. It follows Chief Executive Jim Harrer telling MPs there are no penalties for innocent errors after being questioned by the Public Accounts Committee. The Tory party chairman Zahawi is facing calls to resign after it emerged he had paid a penalty to HMRC whilst he was Chancellor. The Prime Minister today has been saying no issues were raised to him when he appointed Zahawi to his current ministerial role.
Because Nadeem Zahawi himself put a statement into the public domain and there was other reporting, there are questions to answer, and that's why I asked the independent advisor to conduct an investigation to fully establish the facts and provide advice to me about Nadeem Zahawi's compliance with the ministerial code.
In international news, at least 11 people have died in Russian missile strikes in Ukraine, a day after the US and Germany pledged to supply the country with tanks and infantry fighting vehicles. More than 10 were wounded in the attacks, which covered 11 regions, including the capital, Kyiv. Germany's defence minister says he expects the first Leopard 2 tanks to arrive in Ukraine by the end of March, as will the UK's Challenger 2 tanks. Russia has responded, with the Kremlin saying the deliveries of military hardware amounted to direct involvement in the conflict by the West. Well, as you've been hearing, Scotland's First Minister has confirmed a transgender person convicted of rape will not be able to be sent to an all-female prison. Early this week, Isla Bryson, formerly Adam Graham, was found guilty of raping 2 women before choosing to change his gender to female. At First Minister's questions, Nicola Sturgeon addressed the row and whether Bryson should be held at a females-only prison, Corton Vale. She also confirmed an at-risk assessment is being carried out by the Scottish Prison Service. Now, Andrew Bridgen has threatened to sue the former Health Secretary for defamation following an online post he retweeted about the COVID jab. Early this month, a North West Leicestershire MP was stripped of the Tory whip after retweeting a post by a consultant cardiologist, which said the number of people suffering with heart problems after having the COVID vaccine was the biggest crime against humanity since the Holocaust. Matt Hancock accused Mr Bridgen of anti-Semitic, anti-vax and anti-scientific conspiracy theories in the House of Commons. Mr Bridgen took exception to that. And lastly, the King has been given a warm welcome during his first visit to the new Africa Centre in South London. His Majesty spoke to staff and visitors and heard how the centre provides a home away from home for Africans living in the UK. The new building is a 1960s former office block that's been transformed into a community hub for African art, culture and heritage. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. Back now to Dan Wootton tonight.
Time for tomorrow's news tonight in our Media Buzz. Straight to the front pages, and the Eye leads with the news that former Chancellor Nadeem Zahawi has granted permission to HMRC to give his tax history to a Number 10 investigation. And the Metro carries the chilling news that there has been a 1,000% surge in children lured by online abusers. My superstar panel back with me now, political commentator Dominique Samuels, the former Conservative London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. Now, the British bashing corporation's lefty staff are reportedly furious over claims that Chairman Richard Sharp helped secure Boris Johnson an £800,000 loan. Sharp, who has previously made donations to the Tory party, denies that he was involved in the former PM's financial affairs before he became chairman of the Beeb, and is adamant that he shouldn't resign. But a source in the BBC newsroom said the mood was mutinous because of the allegations. Now, these staffers clearly have short memories, right? Because by convention, the chairman is a political appointment. Even the BBC News culture editor, Katie Razzle, needed to be informed of this when she interviewed Sharp on Tuesday.
I mean, lots of people watching this will think, you know, it's so unusual for most people to ever be in the company of a Prime Minister. Is it appropriate for the BBC chairman, whenever it's happening, to be dining at social events with the Prime Minister?
Every BBC chairman has had dinner with the Prime Minister of the day. It's part of what I have to do for the BBC and batting for the BBC is to try and get government to support the BBC. That's what I was doing earlier this week in asking for support for the World Service. That's precisely one of the jobs of the chairman, to do that.
Now, what Razzle and her Beeb cronies conveniently ignore, as pointed out by Stephen Glover in the Daily Mail, is that in the days of New Labour, the government appointed Gavin Davies as chairman, a party stalwart whose wife was a private secretary to Gordon Brown. And don't forget, the BBC Director General at the same time was Greg Dyke, a staunch Blairite who donated £55,000 to Labour's coffers. So, as far as I'm concerned, Sean Bailey, what BBC News staffers in particular can't handle is the fact that there's a Tory chairman of the BBC. That's what this is about.
I think they need to be careful, because what this does, right, if it looks like political bias, now, if there is a case to answer, any case they put looks like it's politically biased, clearly your reporting has just showed they didn't quite understand the rules, that it's a political appointment, so that's what it is. And actually, they shouldn't have an opinion. They either express their opinion through their work, you know, they do a proper investigation, or they have no opinion at all. Because the real problem for the BBC, they continually attack the people who support them. Because it's Middle England, it's people like Richard Sharp who have to go and bat on their behalf or pay the bill. And if they keep feeling attacked, they'll just stop supporting the BBC. For me, it feels like they're almost shooting themselves in the foot.
But Amy Nicol, the reality is BBC staffers just despise the Tories, don't they? That's what this is really about.
I think it's about the fact that an £800,000 loan doesn't seem massively impartial. And if I just say Tory donor involved in decision of head of news at the BBC, again, doesn't sound that impartial.
Yeah, but they never had a problem when it was Gavin Davies and when it was Greg Dyke. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think people always have problems. The left are continuously saying the BBC's right-wing, the right are continuously saying that the BBC's left-wing. But if he has nothing to hide, and maybe he doesn't, then why didn't he just say something at the beginning? And he should have just been transparent about this.
You've got to get the facts.
If there's nothing to hide.
He said he didn't have anything to do with it. Now, if he did or not, but his statement is, I didn't have anything to do with it. But the real thing for me is they've misunderstood that he's a political appointment.
Well, then, if he is so unbothered then why has he just appointed a crisis PR team to handle this whole
Because
thing?
he has a newsroom.
He's got a mutinous BBC newsroom on his
Yeah.
hands, Dominic.
I think
And the
it's
problem is,
hypocritical.
this is the BBC just proving their innate bias again.
Yeah, I think it's really hypocritical because whenever it involves anything right of centre, it's the pearl clutching, it's, we live under authoritarian rule. But whenever it's their people, it's completely fine. The number of quote-unquote impartial journalists that they hire that are campaigners for the Labour Party, and as you've said in the past, and it's a political appointment, I highly doubt there would be mutiny if it were someone on their political side.
There would be.
But I'll just say in general, as a matter of principle, I do find the idea of this sort of revolving door between media and politics, I personally find it uncomfortable because I feel like it stops actual accountability happening, but you can't pick and choose.
No. Can you imagine if he was a Labour donor and he'd given £800,000 to Keir Starmer?
Yeah, but
imagine your reaction.
It's a political
Imagine
appointment.
your reaction.
You're missing the point.
I don't think you would see it like that.
This is a political appointment.
But Dan,
would you see it like that?
Dan,
you're missing the point, Amy.
I'm
you should then
asking.
campaign for the chairman of the BBC to be a non-political appointment.
Yeah.
OK, political or not, would you have done a 10-minute monologue on Keir Starmer, BBC, all this confirms their bias?
They've got it to the point. They've got it to the point where all you have to say is Tory donor, and somehow it's automatic. But there was a Labour donor who was also the chair. Nobody's speaking about that. If having any political...
No one had a problem with Gavin Davies and Greg Dyke.
If having any political allegiance means you can't have a public position, then nobody with union membership or alignment should have a political position.
Or you say end all political appointments, because, by the way, no government appointed more cronies than New Labour. This was the New Labour thing, to get all of their minds into all of these positions in the bloc. And we're still dealing with the repercussions.
The legacy is there.
Now, look, fresh off the back of being exposed as a liar by Prince Harry in Spare, the Sussex lapdog Omid Scobie has made a desperate pitch to get them back on side. Taking after his master Meghan Markle, Scobie has revived the allegations of racism against the royal family without a single shred of evidence. Look at this.
Their mere existence, their mere story, has raised issues about misogyny within the institution of the monarchy, about unconscious bias or racism. And I know Harry called it unconscious bias. I'm still going to call it racism because I think that it's only not racist when it's unconscious. The second someone makes it conscious to you and you try and minimize it or skirt the topic, or recollections may vary it, that is racism.
Now, I don't need to remind you that the recollections may vary statement was issued by the late Majesty, the Queen, after Harry and Meghan gave their fantasy-fueled, proven tissue of lies interview with Oprah Winfrey in March 2021. So, Mr. Scobie, if you're going to accuse our greatest ever monarch of being a racist, then I suggest you put up or shut up. Where's the evidence, mate? Otherwise, you've once again outed yourself as a woke rabble-rouser that will say anything for the pathetic Sussex PR machine. Shame on you. Amy Nicole, Sean Bailey, Dominic Samuels, do stand by, because coming up, as a young British athlete and wannabe Greta Thunberg refuses to fly to Australia for a competition for environmental reasons. Are cruel parents ruining their children's dreams through extreme climate views? My panel are going to be back at 10:30 to debate that. But next, as the COVID booster programme is paused due to dwindling uptake, why are vaccine victims still being scandalously ignored? 2 victims of the COVID jab join me live in the studio as I reveal bombshell new evidence which puts the government to shame.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamon Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone.
My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the aftermath of COVID rumbles on as Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen sues Matt Hancock for £100,000 after the former Health Secretary called him anti-Semitic for saying the vaccine rollout was, quote, one of the worst crimes since the Holocaust. Meanwhile, the government dropped a huge bombshell by announcing the COVID vaccination programme would be coming to an end for healthy Brits on February the 12th. So, as dwindling uptake and overconfidence in the vaccine finally comes to light, just why are the victims who have been maimed and killed by the jab still being ignored? Tonight, I can reveal exclusively that despite more than 3,000 claims made to the government's vaccine damage payment scheme, where victims of the jab are meant to be awarded £120,000 each, just 33 have been told they are eligible for a payout, while around 2,500 still haven't had their claims looked at. Victims who simply tried doing right by society, who have been left rocked by the consequences, are being rejected by faceless pen pushers who deem them less than 60% disabled. So here to shine a light on the continued apathy towards these poor folk is Charlotte Wright. Now, we know Charlotte, of course. She is the widow of the doctor, Stephen Wright, who died 2 years ago to the day after taking the AstraZeneca vaccine. And she's joined by fellow campaigner Claire Hibbs, who suffered vaccine-induced thrombosis that left her too ill to work, yet was last week told she wasn't injured enough for a payout. So Claire, that must have been absolutely devastating for you. I mean, you've got your walking stick here, your life has been changed forever, yet you're not going to receive the payout?
No, they. I think the most heartbreaking thing about it is their reasons and their excuses for not paying.
What are they saying? How are they justifying?
So their main reason is that it actually says that the menopause is what is the main cause of all my symptoms. It's just shocking that they have come up with that as a reason.
Because that was not what your doctors told you after the jab.
No, so I've had a neurologist that has recently told me as well that as a result of the VIT, the vaccine-induced thrombosis, my ongoing symptoms, which have started from obviously day one, I've now got chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic migraine, fibromyalgia, and these are all as a result of VIT. And the neurologist has agreed to that. He's said that that's what's happened.
Because you clotted terribly.
Yes, yeah. So I had multiple clots throughout my body and had to have life-saving treatment, was in hospital for a long time. And I was lucky that I was saved, you know, not like Stephen. I mean, I had what Stephen had, but I was lucky that I went to hospital quite early on. And now, obviously, with all these side effects, I just can't work, I can't walk, I just can't do anything, and I'm so tired. And one of the other things that they mentioned as well was that in the report, they've actually said I work long hours. But I attempted to go back to work last April because I was so desperate for money, because obviously I haven't got any income. My husband works, so can't claim any benefits. So we're actually a whole wage down in our household. And I went back, I think I'd done a total of 9 days, and because I normally work 12-hour shifts, but this was on a phased return. And I couldn't manage it, so I was signed off sick again. But they've put in there, she works long hours, but they clearly know that I'm signed off again.
Yeah, it's just appalling. It's just absolutely appalling given what you've had to go through. But Charlotte, obviously, we know your story so well. Very few people have to deal with quite the trauma that you have. It must be an emotional day for you. 2 years, exactly, since the loss of Stephen. How do you feel about it looking back now? Because obviously you have had time for some perspective.
I wish that we were further along than we are. I don't feel like we've achieved a lot, haven't we?
Yeah.
But the government still kind of denying it. I mean, even when they gave me the kind of like the acceptance of the
because you're one
damage.
of the few people who have actually received that, we should point out.
Yeah, it was kind of even written in the letter that it was along the lines of, you know, the probability that he died from. So it wasn't sorry, it wasn't.
Do you want an apology?
You know, of course, that's all we do want, really.
And you feel, I imagine, ignored and marginalised by a mainstream media who still don't want to tackle this issue?
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly how we feel, yeah. And, you know, we're just so thankful to GBNews because they're the only people that really kind of listen to us.
Yeah.
Because, Claire, how do you feel about Andrew Bridgen? He has announced today that he is suing Matt Hancock for his comments.
Yeah.
And I think whether you agreed with the tone or the tenor of what he said, it's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? That there's only one MP who has really stood up for the victims of the VAT.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Sir Christopher Chope as well, who is now set up...
He has been amazing.
Yeah, he's set up the APPG, and we've also got Andrew Bridgen, and regardless of what tone it is, it's getting the issue in the news, and that's what we need. So we need the mainstream media to be discussing it, and like you say...
I know, but the thing that I struggle so much with, and I really hope people look at these two women, right? Because any time vaccine damage or injury is raised in the mainstream media, and we're talking about the biggest newspapers here, you
Yeah.
know, the Times, for example, they describe people who talk about this as conspiracy theorists.
Or anti-vax.
And anti-vax.
Yeah.
You had the vaccine.
Yeah.
Stephen had the vaccine.
Yeah.
There is nothing anti-vax
No.
about that.
No.
This is not a conspiracy
We are
theory.
always called anti-vax.
Yeah,
We are
always.
referred to all the time as anti-vax. The march, on Saturday,
Yes.
when that was, I think, the only person that mentioned it in any tabloid or any mainstream media was The Independent, and the headline was anti-vax.
And it's become a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Charlotte, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
it is.
And how do you feel now about the vaccine overall? I mean, presumably you wish that Stephen hadn't
Yeah.
been jabbed.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the funniest thing to me about being called anti-vax is that it's not a vaccine in my eyes, you know. I only
Is that
ever
because
say
it doesn't prevent transmission?
it just doesn't qualify for a vaccine in my eyes, you know. It just didn't have the proper testing, the gene therapy in it. I just don't agree with the term vaccine, so I say jab or injection, you know. So I do wish he didn't have it, but I think my anger lies with the fact that he had it so early because he was a doctor. If he had waited until his age group upon the advice, he wouldn't have had AstraZeneca. But really, where is COVID now? You know, it should have been vulnerable and elderly or
the
people that
who were at
needed
risk.
it. You know, he
People
wasn't at
at
risk.
from dying of COVID. And Claire, I guess you must feel some hope though, because even though the political establishment, Westminster, and the media, the vast majority of the media, are desperately out of touch on this issue, I know in my own life that there is a real gathering momentum behind the cause. It's very rare now to speak to someone who doesn't tell me a story about a personal experience.
Same here.
of someone,
We get so many messages.
especially young folk dealing
Yeah.
with myocarditis.
Yeah.
And so, actually, this is why the public are turning against the establishment, because they're not feeling represented.
Yeah, it's changing. It's. I think the tide's turning now, and I think it's now. We hear so much more about it now, and we get so many messages, and people send me messages all the time telling me their stories, and it's. And I think now that it's coming out more, I think gradually the mainstream media are going to start talking about it. It's
They have to. And look, my message on this, as it has been since the start of GB News, is very, very clear. Don't sweep this under the carpet. Don't pretend it didn't happen. That makes the situation so much worse. You drive people underground. Do not describe ladies like this as anti-vaxxers or conspiracy theories. They are neither of those things.
Or rare. It's not rare.
Yeah.
It's not rare.
And so it doesn't help. It doesn't help trying to ignore a problem.
Yeah.
It really doesn't
No.
help. And you're doing a disservice, actually, to what needs to be a real rational debate about why this happened, how it happened, so that the next time something is developed, we saw Tony Blair talking about the need for vaccine after vaccine at the World Economic Forum, that only the vulnerable are ever put through this. But look, thank you very much, Charlotte Wright and Claire Hibbs.
Thank you.
Being here
Thanks
and
for
sharing
having
your
us.
story. Of course, both sides of the story here on GB News. So a spokesman for the NHS Business Services Authority, a Department for Health team that handles payments, said, "We're aware that a number of claimants are waiting for an outcome to their claim, and we apologise for this. We appreciate the continued patience of claimants at this time. We will continue to do all we can to support claimants and to progress all claims as quickly as possible, and we're continuing to increase our resources to help facilitate this." Now, coming up in Uncancelled, as Nicola Sturgeon makes a screeching U-turn over keeping trans charlatan rapist Adam Graham in a female prison, why is Scotland's First Minister still refusing to scrap her sick gender reform bill? Charlie Lawson on this at 10:45. But next, in the media buzz, one of Britain's brightest athletic stars has turned down the opportunity to compete in Australia on environmental grounds. So are her cruel parents ruining her career by brainwashing her with climate extremism? Is she the new Greta Thunberg? My panel debate that next.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. Just been handed lots more papers, so I want to go to the Daily Mail first, which reports that Chancellor Jeremy Hunt will pledge to transform British genius and hard work into longer-term prosperity. Good luck with that, high tax Hunt. Just cut our bloody taxes, please. The Daily Mirror leads with singer Rod Stewart launching an attack on the Tories and their handling of the NHS, accusing Number 10 of plunging it into its worst ever crisis. Now, look, I actually think this is really interesting because Rod Stewart's a Tory, he's a Tory, and this will really resonate with a lot of people, what he said today. The Sun follows up on their recent exclusive on Freddie Flintoff's horror crash while filming Top Gear. They reveal that his family have convinced him to put the brakes on his TV career after the accident last month. And the Daily Star splashes on a warning from researchers at Oxford University that robots could turn on humans and kill us all. One of our superstar panellists, Rebecca Reid, who's here on Tuesday nights, absolutely believes that's what's going to happen. She's terrified of AI and robots. Tonight's superstar panel back. Dominic Sammies, you're agreeing with that, are you, Dominic?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's scary. Sean Bailey, you a fan of robots?
It starts with
Nicole.
little things,
Yeah.
but then...
Just watch Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
right? Now, 16-year-old Innes Fitzgerald is a record-breaking runner tipped to become one of British athletics' brightest stars, who is now being dubbed the Greta Thunberg of sport. Why? Because the celebrated teenager has shocked the world of British athletics by refusing to travel to the World Cross Country Championships in Australia due to environmental concerns. Explaining her decision, Fitzgerald told Athletics Weekly that, quote, "The reality of the travel fills me with deep concern. I would never be comfortable flying in the knowledge that people could be losing their livelihoods, homes and loved ones as a result." The comparisons with Greta aren't just based on their shared climate concerns, though. Like Thunberg, this teenager has, surprise, surprise, grown up with eco-warrior parents who it appears have pushed her towards making a decision that could leave her lifetime dreams in tatters. Fitzgerald told reporters, "My family is as environmentally minded as I am. We live in a passive house on a small holding growing fruit and vegetables, so my dad was happy for us not to fly." I have to be honest with you, I find this news genuinely sad. To commit your entire childhood to mastering a sport, to excel so impressively in that sport, only to find your path to the top blocked by family-fueled climate hysteria is, in my opinion, unimaginably cruel. So, is her decision unethical, or are cruel parents allowing children to ruin their dreams with climate extremism, Amy Nicole?
I think it would be much more sad if she were forced to go against her wishes. She's clearly made this based on her integrity and values, and that's great. If she wants to do that, flying is the most environmentally damaging way to travel. She's made a decision. That's her decision.
But Sean, isn't this so cruel of the parents? I mean, what I hate about all of this is these kids are all going to wake up in 20 years' time and realise, oh my goodness, the world is here. We're still dealing with all of the same problems. Gradually, things are getting better. But we missed out on that great gap year. We missed out on all of these experiences, seeing the world, following our passions, following our dreams. I think it's so sad, and shame on these parents.
Look, there's two things. If her parents have given her this view of the world, they're all going to have to accept that athletics will move on without her, and they won't care one little bit. Some other young lady will become
this will finish her career. If you can't fly, you can't be a professional sports person.
Yeah, but the key thing she needs to look at, she's not flying around for a jolly. She's not going to her third house in Australia. What she's trying to do is build a career. And anybody who thinks you can't fly at all is trying to wind the world back to the 1700s.
Yeah.
And what actually people should be doing around flying is maybe, don't take 10 flights a year unless it's for work, unless it's generating something. Take a few more, holiday in the country you're in. But to be clear, she's about to destroy her career because something her parents have impressed upon her.
That's not...
And her parents... What? Her parents will have to take some responsibility for that as well.
And you know what is really not very environmentally friendly? Private jets, the same private jets that all of these elites use that tell us that if we don't cut the things out of our lives that we love, we're a danger to the planet, that we need to live in misery, that we need to live in lack in order to save the planet. And I think, I'm not going to say anything personally towards this teenage girl because I think she's probably does believe she's sticking by her values, but I think it's an example of brainwashing.
Greta? Yeah, well, I was going to say, didn't we see this with Greta? Greta wasn't a little teenager who came up with this all on her own.
Yeah.
It was something that was very much developed by her pushy parents.
This extreme ideology is being pushed and programmed into children, so they're actually convinced that what they are doing is making an impact. But you know what? The airline industry employs thousands and thousands of people. Many of their livelihoods rely on people like her taking those flights, and she didn't have to get a fancy flight, she didn't have to get a private jet. I think she's misguided and she'll regret this.
But equally,
100%.
there is a bit of onus on the aviation industry to get a grip on this and move forward and move it to decarbonise as much as they can. It is happening.
That is
but you can make
a move.
And we can't do this overnight. We cannot do this overnight. It's happening. It is happening. I think we're moving too fast this direction.
So do I. This whole idea of net zero, by the way, is just about offsetting your carbon points somewhere else. It's not actually about being environmentally friendly. It's a scam.
You've got to look at it. You've got to look at it around. The airline industry will tell you that they're making these strides forward, but you can't take the carbon out of a jet engine entirely. And you never make a commercial jet electric. Certainly not in the next 50 years. But these people have a low carbon footprint if you take on face value what they've said. So as environmentalists, they should be able to say to themselves, we've lowered our carbon footprint.
But the thing is, this is just a cruel thing to do to kids when, as Dominique says, all of these people who are preaching and putting these ideas out there, flying to the World Economic Forum on private jets. And, you know, it very much plays into the idea that people are being brainwashed.
Well, you're taking the agency away
because
from her. This is her choice. That's her freedom.
It is her choice.
But where's it come
the
from?
choice. It's probably come from melting glaciers, rising sea levels, freak storms.
Extremist propaganda, as Dominique says, that is actually brainwashing young people into thinking that the world's about to end. It's not.
Well, it certainly is accelerating.
And these people will still continue flying around and then going to their ridiculous conferences, affecting the planet way worse than the average person that we could.
Isn't good, ordinary Brits giving up air travel.
No.
That is not the answer. And actually, we're doing so much. And actually, the corporate world is doing so much and governments are doing so much. So actually, personal responsibility, I don't think, should come into this. And I think fly around the world, see the world. You're going to regret this, young lady.
She will.
Ignore your parents, actually. You're 16 years old now. Get off that horrible...
Dan, you might enjoy... Why don't you try a bit of interrailing? You might like it. You might be missing out. You know those first-class flights are the most carbon-heavy. You should be careful.
Good, I will keep taking them. Now, after wowing the culinary world with his signature dishes of a bacon sandwich and a bog-standard gin and tonic, renowned chef Brooklyn Beckham... Oh, do you remember this? Oh, my goodness, I loved that. American TV segment on the bacon sandwich. Yes, anyway, renowned chef Brooklyn Beckham back with another gourmet creation that's quite literally out of the box. In a 90-second video that could be considered an act of war against Italy, the talent-free sprog of Posh and Becks knocked up a vegan lasagna comprising of pasta sheets and a tomato sauce that suspiciously we never saw him prepare, and a grotesque out-the-packet meat substitute for an added dash of wokery. Social media foodies quickly cried "Mamma Mia," describing the dish as, quote, very basic, with literally zero finesse and genuinely disgusting. With one particularly harsh critic joking, next week, little Brooklyn will be making dinosaur chicken nuggets. Now, Brooklyn, who's hunting for a vocation after failed attempts at photography and football, later defended himself, insisting he had at least added seasoning to spice up your slice. But after these reviews, perhaps he should go back to his day job. What is that again? No, me neither. Amy Nicole, Sean Bailey, Dominic Samuels, do stand by, because coming up, which Labour MP gets tonight's Union Jackass crown? Find out as we reveal the GBUJ at 10:50. But next, in Uncancelled, the estranged wife of Adam Graham has exposed the trans rapist for what he is, forcing Nicola Sturgeon to a screeching U-turn to keep him away from a female prison. So why is Scotland's First Minister still refusing to scrap her sick gender reform bill? Man of the People Charlie Lawson is up right after the break.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway...
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, the estranged wife of the double rapist formerly known as Adam Graham, now going by the name Isla Bryson, has branded the sex criminal's transition a sham to seek attention and receive an easier time in a female jail. Shauna Graham told the Mail Online, "Never once did he say anything to me about feeling he was in the wrong body. I have a lot of sympathy for real transgender people, but he's just bullshitting the authorities. I can see why he doesn't want to be in a prison with loads of big scary men, so he's come up with this ploy." Joining me now to give his take on this growing Scottish scandal is man of the people, Charlie Lawson. Charlie, Scheming Sturgeon
Good evening, John.
had to do a screeching U-turn on this today. But in reality, she's no feminist, is she, Charlie? Because it's her woke orthodoxy in Scotland that has seen this male rapist sent to a female prison.
Well, I think, Dan, earlier on this week, I was very, very angry about two placards saying decapitate TERFs and all this.
Yeah.
Well, then I got even more angry when I heard a quote say about this man, Mr. I'm calling him Mr. because that's what he is.
He is.
I don't give a shit about pronouns or whatever. But when she was a man, he was convicted of raping two. I mean, I was infuriated and actually came off social media. But what happened consequently was, I think that bowing to pressure of the good British public, who turned around and said, "Nippy, wise up, you silly pillock." This is just wrong. And of course, in the end, Sturgeon, being a politician, has bowed to pressure from the silent majority who are starting to get listened to. And now this has been absolutely ridiculed and chucked out. But believe you me, Dan, she's only doing this because it suits her status as leader of the Scottish National Party. She's doing it because some PR person has prodded her in the arse and said,
"Oh yeah, she doesn't want to do this.
I think we ought to go back on this."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what did you make of this extraordinary interview, Charlie, from Shauna Graham, who was married to, or who is married to this monster? Actually, she remains her husband. So while this guy gets through the courts in Scotland, no one calls him out for this being a complete sham. The wife says he never spoke about wanting to change gender. This is something that he has done simply to avoid the tough treatment that he's going to get as a double rapist of women in a men's prison.
Well, Shauna's come up and been honest. It clearly wasn't a good relationship for her, and my sympathies go out to her because he's clearly a complete arse. But the one thing I would say, Dan, the one positive thing to come out of this is that perhaps this may be a turning point for us silent majority, or us fairly vocal silent majority.
Well, I think it is. No, I think we are the silent majority, but I
listen.
think it's changing. Yeah, I think it's changing. Even the BBC, even the woke British bashing corporation leading on the story today because they know that they can no longer avoid it.
Yes.
There's a couple of other issues in the gender wars, Charlie, that I want to look at, though. Edinburgh University has butchered one of my favourite musicals, Jesus Christ Superstar, by making the Son of God non-binary. The 12 Apostles will also be portrayed by female or non-binary performers in the woke production. But good on him, Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber, Tim Rice, obviously behind the incredible musical Dove, insisted the lyrics and pronouns cannot be changed. What did you make of that?
Well, as you know me, Dan, I spoke to someone this evening about this who's a Christian. He's not devout, but he's a believer, my friend Andy. And he finds it, A, offensive, and B, he doesn't understand it. I don't understand it. I actually couldn't give that big a monkeys. I mean, as we've said before, if you want to change, if you want Francis de Latour to play Hamlet, fine, okay. Now, Jesus Christ, no matter what kind of who you worship or whatever, Jesus Christ was a man. We know that. Now, okay, if you want to play him as a Hamlet, clearly was a chap, but if you want to play Jesus Christ as a girl, I can kind of sort of go along with that, okay? But they're not content with that. It's going to be it's going to be a nobody. It's going to be a rhododendron or something. I mean, what are they going to identify this human being as? It doesn't make any sense. It's another load of bullshit from Edinburgh University, following hard on the heels of Aberdeen, telling us that Peter Pan was dangerous, for Christ's sake.
Oh, I know.
It's the same thing, and we're just thinking, what are, as we've said before, Danny, who are the young people coming out of these universities? What in the name of God are they going to be like?
We know. Sadly, we know. And then there was one more, Charlie, that really got me going today. Former X Factor judge Cheryl Tweedy has said the show will only be able to return if it's given a woke makeover, including the introduction of a non-binary category and scrapping the ageist over 25s group. I mean, Charlie, we don't want a woke-washed X Factor, do we?
No, I don't think Simon will wear this at all. I think he's a fairly sensible chap. But also, I'm actually phoning you from up in the northeast. And Cheryl, get your arse back up here, darling. Keep quiet, shut up, and get on with life, because you're making a dick of yourself again. Just be quiet, get on and judge. Don't spoil. If it ain't broke, don't try and fix it, for Christ's sake. This is just Cheryl trying to be up with the in crowd of Edinburgh and Aberdonian University people. Cheryl, you're gorgeous, baby. Just sit tight at home, keep quiet, and look nice on the show. It's fine the way it is. We don't want rhododendrons and plant pots coming up doing fucking stupid bloody songs.
No, exactly. We want Louis Walsh, Simon Cowell, Cheryl Tweedy, Danny Minogue having big arguments. Forget a non-binary category. Charlie Lawson, thank you so much, Charlie. We'll speak next week. But it's time now to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Dominique Samuels, who are you nominating as your Greatest Britain today?
So mine will be the vaccine victims, many of which have been made lifelong disabled or even unfortunately died as a result. I went to a march on Saturday. It was amazing. It's not anti-vax to speak about these people because they exist and they deserve a voice and compensation from the government.
Indeed. Sean Bailey, your nominee.
My nominee for Greatest Britain, hear me out on this one, is Sir Mark Rowley, who is the Met Commissioner. As he tries to fix the force in London, which is under special measures under Sadiq Khan, he's got a real uphill struggle here. So I'm nominating him so that he knows that we are behind him. We want him to succeed. We want to fix the force. And if you're somewhere else in the country, it also helps you if the Met works properly as well.
And Amy Nicol, your GB nominee.
Well, it links, actually, because I've got a better idea, actually. Mark Rowley, forget it. And let's replace him with Catherine Kaywood, as played by Sarah Lancashire in Happy Valley, who could teach the Met a thing or two, I believe.
OK, so just to clarify, you've nominated a fictitious character.
That is what the Met has led me to.
OK, new low there.
She's a great character.
New low there. But I am going to go with our vaccine damage victims, especially after that very powerful interview with Claire and Charlotte today. Union Jackass time now. Dominique Samuel, what's your nominee? Mine is Labour MP Paulette Hamilton for that really car crash interview that she partook in for The Times, where she said that the quote-unquote transgender prisoner, Isla, forgot second name, should be treated with respect and kindness. Let's have a listen to this. Transition. Let's have a listen.
Have to treat him fairly. Transitioning to a woman, we have to respect the fact that he is transitioning.
No, we don't.
I don't think she read the story.
You absolute idiot. We really don't. His wife has said he is doing this as a sham, as a ruse to get into an all-women's prison, and you were going to do it before we all called out the madness. I think that really shows where Labour is at when it comes to the gender issues. Sean Bailey, your Union Jackass nominee.
My Union Jackass is the Brits and their gender-neutral category, which saw all of the nominees for 2023 being men, which led to calls for half the nominees to be women, so 50-50. That's utter rubbish. What we need is separate categories, bring us back to where we were, where common sense prevails, and they've seen the error of their ways, hopefully.
I'm so angry about it. It was so predictable. I said at the time, you do this, what you'll get very soon is the lefties starting to call for quotas to be introduced. Quotas for female entrants when they don't even know what a woman is. It's bonkers. Bring back the best British female categories. Amy Nicole, your Union Jackass.
Just quickly, though, if you want to see what Labour's position on the Isla case, look for what Yvette Cooper said, because that is more representative of where they stand on that
Keir
topic.
Starmer is Labour's position.
Yeah, and he's fully... Anyway.
And he couldn't identify a woman.
That's not what we're talking about, though, is it? So what are we talking about again? Oh, yeah. So I was shocked to hear, absolutely appalled, the Home Office. 200 children have just vanished, poof, gone from hotels where they're being housed as asylum seekers.
Who's your nominee?
It's the Home Office.
OK, there you go.
Oh, no, it's not. It's not.
I'm going to go with Dominique and Paulette Hamilton, the Labour MP, who says, oh, we need to be so kind to the male rapist. No, we don't. Dominique Samuels, congratulations. Sean Bailey, Amy Nicole, thank you. Thank you too for your company this week. I've absolutely loved it. I'm back Monday at 9. Headliners is up next. Good night.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes.
Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand